Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy!
All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, December 12th. We're going to take a look at Palantir today. So Palantir obviously went through this really nice push up into the 20s. As is common, Palantir having a hard time holding the 20s. Now it has slipped this uptrend support, which we spoke about a few videos ago. My suspicion was always that it was going to lose this probably relatively quickly because it was a very steep uptrend and it was coming off the back of this big gap up as it is. So not surprising to see that came up and just sort of re-rejected it here. But now of interest, you see this gray line here, this 1721. This kicks off the gap down. So if it's going to gap down, 1721 gets it into the gap, it would fill that gap at 1496. So just below this 1505 level that we have in. I turned that purple just to say, hey, that's a support level at 1505, and it's darn close to filling the gap. But it's a little too close in to also put a 1496 level there. It's almost imperceivable, so it's pointless. But Palantir at the moment is basically treating the gap as support. So it's putting up this battle of getting kind of sucked into the vortex or the potential black hole that the gap could become. It does have a near-in support level there at 1696, and that's sort of what held, these 3 days was holding price action just above there. It got down to 1705, 1708, and 1709. So a few very slightly higher lows on those days, but all holding just above that 1696, dipping into that gap a little bit. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, if it gets drawn further down into the gap or if it's able to persist with trying to treat that gap and the 1696 level that's just into it as support. In my opinion, it would need to regain the $18 level for me to feel like it has the opportunity to really just sort of shirk this gap altogether. And that doesn't mean altogether for all time. That just means on this big initial push down here, right? It retraced all of the gains that it had after the gap up. So now the question is, where does that leave it? Is the bearish momentum going to continue to play out? Is it going to be able to stabilize? Is it going to put in a little bear flag here, which wouldn't shock me, right? Puts in a little bear flag and then drops back down into the gap. So waiting to kind of see it play out, but I wanted to call out this attempt to hold over the gap for the time being. Quick check on the EMAs here. We do see recently double bearish crossover. The 8 crossing below the 21 a few days ago, and then the 34 a couple of days ago, and now getting mighty close to that 21 EMA drawing below the 34, which would be then putting it in this 3 EMA formation at least into a fully bearish setup. So we'll see what happens there. But, on this little attempt here, it wasn't able to make any headway back toward the 8, really. It pushed straight off the 34, wicked off of the 8. So that 8 seeming to hold strong at the moment. We see how this can carry quite strongly. Here it didn't really, it sort of laid on top of those, but it didn't really cross over. Here's where that crossover started. That kicked off a good run up. Bearish crossover here. And that brought it down from about 16 down into the 14s. So even though that was brief, that dragged it down pretty quickly. We see this bearish crossover here, which took it from, again, like 16s down here into the 13s. So, just to show that these crossovers, have sort of played out relatively well previously, indicating a direction that it might go. Now, before we take a look at the Thinkorswim study, just to note that, the thing I just said about the EMAs historically on Palantir's chart is true. Palantir is also, though, for one, a relatively volatile stock, and for two, prone to big reactions to catalysts. So who knows? Something from an analyst comes out, some sort of numbers, a contract even that Palantir secures, any of those sort of news items break, and that could certainly skew the impact that a simple EMA setup has on the chart. So here on the Thinkorswim study, we zoom in, we see a brief trigger and fire there. So I'm not quite sure what that was all about. I would maybe look for a re-trigger and a refire to produce something more meaningful in terms of a movement. We'll see if that plays out or not. Right now, though, we do see bearish momentum continuing to pick up as it sort of found some support at the bottom of the channel, came right up shy of the mid-range. So in these couple of swings here, it sort of found resistance off of the cloud. So, on the more neutral cloud here, and then the beginning of the bearish wave cloud here. So not, for the time being at least, having the bullish strength to stretch back up to the mid-range of the channel just yet. So that combined with the bearish momentum picking up in the histogram and the perception of it, potentially continuing to stay pinned between the mid-range of the channel and the lower bound of the channel, and the EMA crossover we just looked at, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for, is it able to get any motion toward that 18? I mean, even then, like I said, the candidacy here for a bear flag also seems quite strong to me, but we're just going to have to see how it plays out. It could come up and gain support over that 18, and then, maybe it wiggles up toward the 19. We'll have to see, but it's right on top of that gap at the moment. It is pinned for the time being on this study. Bearish momentum per the histogram showing that it's picking up. EMAs starting to throw maybe an additional bearish crossover in the coming days. That is sort of to be seen. But those are the things that I kind of wanted to look at and just point out. And as always, we're going to have to see how it goes. But those are the things that I'm watching at the moment. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.